Hey everyone, welcome back to S.E.T For You. In this video, I'll be walking through the June 2025 Edexcel GCSE Higher Maths Paper 2 exam. So grab a pen, a calculator and some paper and let's get started. In the first part of question 1, we are told to express 250 as a product of its prime factors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 250 by 2 and that gives me 125. I'm then going to divide 125 by 5 and that gives me 25. And then finally I'm going to divide 25 by 5 and that gives me 5. And so the final answer is 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. In the second part of this question, we are told to find the lowest common multiple of 30 and 25. So I'm going to repeat what I did in the previous part of this question by breaking each number into its prime factor tree. So 30 can be divided by 2 and that gives 15. And 15 can be divided by 3, in which case you're left with 5. And for 25, I can split this up into 5 and 5. And my next step is to draw two Venn diagrams containing the prime factors of both numbers. So the number 5 can go in the middle, in which case I will cancel 5 in both prime factor trees. And that leaves me with the numbers 2 and 3 on the left and the number 5 on the right. And to obtain the lowest common multiple, we need to find the product of all the numbers in the Venn diagrams. 2 times 3 times 5 times 5, and that equals 150. So your final answer is 150. In question 2, we are told that Sim, Tam and Musa share £6,900 in the ratio 2 to 3 to 5. Work out how much money each person receives. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add their ratios. So 2 plus 3 plus 5 equals 10. And so we have 10 parts. And the next step is we need to divide the amount of money they share into these 10 parts. So we have £6,900 divided by 10, and that equals £690. And finally, we can multiply £690 by each of the ratios to know how much each person receives. So Sid receives £690 multiplied by 2, and that is £1,380. And Tam receives £690 multiplied by 3, and that's going to give you £2,070. And finally, Musa receives £690 multiplied by 5, and that gives you £3,450. So Sid receives £1,380, Tam receives £2,070, and Musa receives £3,450. In question 3, we are given a plan of parts of Maxon's garden. There is a circle inside a triangle. The circle has a diameter of 7 meters. Maxon will cover the shaded area with gravel. Gravel is sold in bags. Each bag of gravel covers an area of 12.5 meters squared. Work out the number of bags of gravel Maxon will need. So the first step is to obtain the area of this triangle, and remember that the area of a triangle equals the base multiplied by the height divided by 2. So in this case, that's going to be 16 multiplied by 14 divided by 2, and that gives you a value of 112 meters squared. The next step is to obtain the area of the circle, and remember that the area of a circle equals pi times r squared. So in this case, given as our diameter is 7 meters, the radius is half of that, which is 3.5. So that's going to be pi multiplied by 3.5 squared, and that gives you a value of 49 over 4 pi meters squared. And to obtain the shaded area, we need to subtract the area of the circle from the area of the triangle. So the shaded area equals 112 minus 49 over 4 pi, and that equals 73.51548,999 meters squared. Therefore, the number of bags will simply be the shaded area divided by the area that each bag of gravel covers. So in this case, that's going to be 73.51548,999 meters squared divided by 12.5 meters squared. And that gives a value of about 5.88, which is approximately equal to 6. So your final answer, or the total number of bags of gravel Maxon will need, is 6. In the final part of this question, we are told that Maxon finds that each bag of gravel only covers an area of 11 meters squared. How does this affect your answer to part A? So you would remember from the previous part that each bag of gravel covers an area of 12.5 meters squared, and in this part, each bag of gravel covers an area of 11 meters squared. So that means that each bag of gravel covers a smaller area, therefore more bags will be needed. So you can simply state that more bags are needed, and so the answer to part A will be higher. In question 4, the point C is shown on a centimeter grid. A point P is at least 2 centimeters from the point C. Nadia is asked to shade the region where point P could be. Her answer is shown on the grid. Explain the mistake Nadia has made. Well, if the point P is at least 2 centimeters from the point C, that implies that it can be anywhere outside of this circle, because we can see that this radius here is 2 centimeters away from the point C. So in other words, the minimum point that P can be from this point C is 2 centimeters, which is on the circumference of the circle. So we can simply state that the shaded area is within 2 meters of the circle, and so Nadia should have shaded the region outside the circle. In question 5, we are told that this year the total weight of potatoes grown on a farm is 1/5 less than last year. This year the total weight of potatoes grown is 8,000 tons. Work out the total weight of potatoes grown last year. So we know that 1/5 represents 20%. So we need to subtract 20% from 100%, which always represents the full total. So 100% minus 20% gives you 80%, and 8,000 tons represents 80%. So 1% can be obtained by dividing 80,000 by 80, and that gives us a value of 100 tons. Therefore, 100%, which is the original value, equals 100 tons multiplied by 100, and that gives you a value of 10,000. So your final answer is 10,000 tons. In question 6, we are given 2 lists of numbers. The mean of list A to the ratio of the mean of list B is 3 to 5. Work out the value of x. So to obtain the mean of any value or any list of numbers, we need to add up all the values of that list and divide that by the total number of values. So the mean of list A equals 276 plus 400 plus 157 plus 139 divided by 4, and that gives you a value of 243. And the mean of list B equals 530 plus 500 plus 270 plus x plus 440 plus 320 divided by 6, and that simplifies to 2060 plus x divided by 6. And remember that the ratio 3 to 5 can also be written as 243 to 2060 plus x all over 6. And so 243 divided by 3 is 81. So I know that I can multiply the left side by 81. And that also means I need to multiply the right side by 81. Therefore, 5 times 81 equals 2060 plus x divided by 6. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 6, in which case I'll be left with 2060 plus x, and that equals 2,430. And so to obtain the value of x, I'm going to simply subtract 2,060 from both sides, and that gives me 370. And so the final answer is 370. In question 7, we are given a right angle triangle ABC. Calculate the value of x. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So because we know it's a right angle triangle, we can use SOHCAHTOA. We have our opposite, which is 7 centimeters, and our adjacent, which is 4 centimeters. So we are going to use tan. So tan x equals your opposite divided by your adjacent. So in this case, tan x equals your opposite, which is 7 centimeters, divided by your adjacent, which is 4. Therefore, x equals tan inverse of 7 over 4, which equals 60.3 degrees to 1 decimal place. So your final value for x is 60.3. In question 8, we are told that metal rods are made from steel with density 8 grams per centimeter cubed. Each metal rod has a volume of 1,500 centimeter cubed. The maximum mass of metal rods that can be put on a trolley is 300 kilograms. Work out the greatest number of metal rods that can be put on the trolley. So the first thing we need to identify is that density equals mass divided by volume. So to obtain your mass, you need to multiply your density by your volume. In this case, we have 8 grams per centimeter cubed multiplied by 1,500 centimeter cubed. And so the mass equals 12,000 grams, which when divided by 1,000 gives you 12 kilograms. You need to make sure you know that. And so to obtain the greatest number of metal rods that can be put on a single trolley, we need to divide the maximum mass of metal rods on a single trolley by the total mass. So in this case, we're going to divide 300 kilograms by 12 kilograms, and that's going to give us 25. So your final answer is 25. In question 9, we are given this equation for all the values of x that are not 0. Find the value of a, the value of b, and the value of n. So what we need to do here is expand this expression. So 3 times 4 is 12. And x to the power of negative 1 multiplied by x gives you x to the power of 0. And 3 times negative 1 is minus 3. And x to the power of negative 1 multiplied by x cubed is x squared. So the value of a is 12, the value of b is negative 3, and the value of n is 2. In question 10, we are told to solve this equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 3. And that gives me 14 minus x equals 9x. And so the next step is to add x to both sides. So we can see x and minus x will cancel, and 9x plus x gives us 10x. So we have 10x equals 14. And so to obtain the value of x, you need to divide both sides by 10. So x equals 1.4. So your final value for x is 1.4. In question 11, Freya and Ria each do an exam. The probability that Freya will pass the exam is 0.8, and the probability that Ria will pass the exam is 0.85. Complete the probability tree diagram. So the first thing we need to identify is that the total probability must add up to 1. So in this case, to obtain the probability that Freya fails, we need to subtract 0.8 from 1, and that gives us a value of 0.2. And we can also repeat the same for the probability that Ria passes and fails for both turns. So 1 minus 0.85 gives us 0.15, and we already know that the probability that Ria will pass is 0.85, so I can put 0.85 here, and so the probability that she will fail is 0.15. In the second and final part of this question, we are told to work out the probability that only one of Freya or Ria will pass the exam. So that means either of them will pass the exam. So what we need to do is we need to consider two cases. So we need to consider the probability that Freya will pass and Ria will fail, or the probability that Freya will fail and Ria will pass. So the probability that Freya will pass is 0.8 multiplied by the probability that Ria will fail, which is 0.15, plus the probability that Freya will fail, which is 0.2, multiplied by the probability that Ria will pass, which is 0.85. And so when you put all of this into your calculator, your final answer is 0.29. So I'm going to write 0.29 as my final answer. In question 12, the table gives some information about the ages in years of 32 actors. Draw a box plot to represent this information. So the lowest age is 21, so I'm going to represent that here on my graph. The highest age is 80, so I'm going to draw that right here. And the median is 35, so 35 is halfway between 30 and 40. And the lowest quartile is at 31, so I'm going to draw another line here. And the upper quartile is at 42, so that's 2 spaces ahead of 40. And so all I need to just do is draw my vertical lines connecting these lines here. And then also remember, you need to draw your lines to look something like this and like this. And that's how you draw your box plot to represent this information. In the second part of this question, we are told to work out an estimate for the number of these actors with an age between 31 years and 42 years. 31 represents your upper quartile and 42 represents your lower quartile. So this is 3/4 of the total, and this is 1/4 of your total. So 3/4 minus 1/4 equals 1/2. Therefore, 1/2 multiplied by 32 gives us 16. So your final answer is 16. In the final part of this question, Mary says at least one of the actors is 35 years old because the median is 35. Is Mary correct? Give a reason for your answer. So simply put, your answer is no, because the number of actors is 32. Therefore, your median will be an average between two numbers. In question 13, we are told to show that 2x plus 3 multiplied by x minus 1 multiplied by x plus 2 can be written in the form given, where a, b, c, and d are integers. So the first thing I'm going to do is expand and simplify the last two brackets, and so that will give me 2x plus 3 multiplied by x squared plus 2x minus x minus 2, and that gives me 2x plus 3 multiplied by x squared plus x minus 2. And so when I expand this, I'm left with 2x cubed plus 2x squared minus 4x plus 3x squared plus 3x minus 6. And when I finally simplify this, this gives me 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus x minus 6. And so we can see that the answer is in the form that we have been asked to write it in. In question 14, we are told that there are 15 dogs in a dog show. One dog is awarded first prize, a different dog is awarded second prize. There are 12 cats in a cat show. One cat is awarded first prize and a different cat is awarded second prize. Work out how many different ways these 4 prizes can be awarded. So if we consider the dog prizes, for the first prize, we have 15 choices, and for the second prize, that leaves us with 14 choices, because in this question we are told that only one dog is awarded the first prize and a different dog is awarded the second prize. And so the number of ways in which to award the dog prizes is simply multiplying 15 and 14, and that gives us a value of 210. And if we look at the cat prizes, the first prize can be awarded to all 12 cats, so I'm going to put 12, and the second prize can be awarded to any of the remaining cats, which leaves us with 11 choices. And the number of ways in which the cat prizes can be awarded can be obtained by multiplying 12 and 11, and that gives us 132. So your final answer will be obtained by multiplying 210 by 132, and that gives us a value of 27,720. So your final answer is 27,720. In the first part of question 15, we are told to show by shading on the grid the region that satisfies all these inequalities and to label the region R. So the first step is to always focus on the easy equation. So I'm going to start with the equation y is greater than 1, which will be a straight horizontal line through the point y equals 1. Remember that we have a dotted line because this is greater than 1 and not greater than equal to 1, and we can apply this to every other inequality in this question. So the equation of this straight line is actually y equals 1, and for x is greater than 2, it's going to be a straight vertical line through the point x equals 2, and so this vertical line is x equals 2. And for the other inequalities, we need to find out where they cut the x and the y axis. So for x plus y is less than 5, I'm going to model this as x plus y equals 5, and so when x equals 0 on the y axis, y equals 5, and when y equals 0, which is on the x axis, x equals 5. So I'll now be connecting the points 0, 5 and 5, 0. So 0, 5 is right here and 5, 0 is here, and when I join these two lines, it should look something like this. And I'll repeat the same thing for y is less than 3x minus 2. So in this case, when x equals 0, y equals negative 2, and when y equals 0, x equals 2 over 3. So I'm plotting the points 0, negative 2, and 2 over 3, 0. So 0, negative 2 will be here on the y-axis, and 2 over 3, 0 will be somewhere here on the x-axis. So all I need to do is draw a straight line through those points, and that will look something like this. And then I can also extend it here, so that will look something like this. And so now I have all of my lines for each of my inequalities, so I'm going to very quickly label each of them. So the equation of this line is y equals 3x minus 2, and the equation of this line is x plus y equals 5. And to determine the region of R, we need to shade the relevant sides of our lines based on the inequalities we have been given in the question. So in this case, we'll start with y is greater than 1. If y is greater than 1, we are shading above this horizontal line, and that will give us this. If x is greater than 2, we will be shading on the right of the line x equals 2, and so that will give us something that looks like this. And for the final two inequalities, I'm going to start with x plus y is less than 5. If x plus y is less than 5, we can pick a random point on our graph to see if it satisfies the inequality. And if it satisfies the inequality, we shade that side of the line. So for example, if I pick the point 0, 0, which is at the center, 0 plus 0 is less than 5, which is true. So I know that I'll be shading below this line. So the shaded part will look something like this. And for y is less than 3x minus 2, if I pick the point 0, 0, I have 0 is less than 3 times 0 minus 2, in which case 0 is less than minus 2. And given that 0 is not less than minus 2, I will need to shade on the right of this line y equals 3x minus 2. So when I shade on the right, that looks something like this. And so we can clearly see that the region R will lie here. So this right here is your region R. In the second and final part of this question, Ron says, I can remove one of the 4 inequalities from the grid so that the region R will not change. Ron is correct. Which inequality can be removed so that the region R will not change? If we take a closer look at this question, we can see that it is the inequality y is less than 3x minus 2. If I remove this line, the graph looks like this, and we can see clearly that R still lies in that same region. So the final answer is y is less than 3x minus 2. In question 16, we are told that 2 jars are mathematically similar. Work out the height h of the smaller jar. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So the length cubed can be obtained by dividing the volumes of both jars. So 1350 divided by 90, and that gives us 15. And so the length, which is also the scale factor, equals the cube root of 15. Therefore, the height h equals 12 divided by the length, which is equal to 12 divided by the cube root of 15, and that equals 4.9 centimeters to 1 decimal place. So the final answer is 4.9 centimeters. In the final part of the next question, we are told that the surface area of the smaller jar is a centimeter squared and the surface area of the larger jar is pa centimeters squared. Find the exact value of P. So what we know is that when we multiply the surface area of the smaller jar, which is A, by the length squared, that gives us the surface area of the larger jar. So in other words, P equals L squared. So given as we know that L equals the cube root of 15, we can work out the value of L squared by squaring our value for L. So this is going to give us the cube root of 15 squared, and that equals 6.08220196. And so your final value for P is 6.08220196. In question 17, we are given a sketch of parts of the graph y equals k to the power of x, where k is a positive constant. The graph passes through the points with coordinates -1, 1.5. Find the value of k. So the first thing we need to do is substitute the coordinates of the point that the graph passes through into the equation of our graph. So remember, our graph has equation y equals k to the power of x, and x equals -1 and y equals 1.5. So 1.5 equals k to the power of -1. So I'm going to rewrite my right hand side as 1 over k, and that equals 1.5. Therefore, k equals 1 over 1.5, and that equals 2 over 3. So your final answer is 2 over 3. In question 18, we are told that at the start of the year n, the population of a deer in a park is dn. At the start of the following year, the population of the deer is dn plus 1. dn plus 1 equals k dn, where k is a constant. At the start of 2019, the population of the deer was 2,000. At the start of 2020, the population of the deer was 2,400. Show that at the start of 2000, the population of the deer was greater than 3,000. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the information given to me in the question and substitute that into this equation. So at the start of 2019, the population of the deer was 2,000, and I'm going to multiply that value by k, and that equals the value of the population of the deer in the following year, which is 2,400. Therefore, k equals 2,400 divided by 2,000, which equals 1.2. So in the year 2021, dn plus 1 equals 1.2, which is your value of k, multiplied by the population of the deer in the previous year, which is 2,400, and that equals 2,880. And in 2022, the population of the deer, dn plus 1, equals 1.2 multiplied by 2,880, which is the population of the deer in 2021, and that equals 3,456, which is greater than 3,000. In question 19, we are asked to work out the size of angle GEB. So the first step is to identify the triangle we need, and so to find angle GEB, we need to work in triangle BGE. However, before we do that, we must first calculate the lengths of BG and GE. In order to find the length of BG, we need to start with triangle BGH. Here we are given the adjacent side, so I'm going to call this A, And we need to obtain the side BG, so I'm going to call that x. And that's our opposite. And using the tangent function, we can state that tan 27 equals x over 15. So x, which is also BG, equals 15 times tan 27. And that gives us approximately 7.64 centimeters. The next step is to find the length of side GE using triangle GFE. And in this case, we need to work out GE, which is the hypotenuse, and I'm going to label this as Y, and I'll call this H. And we have already been given the adjacent side, which is 15 centimeters, so I'll also label this as A. So using the cosine function, we can state that cos 52 equals 15 over Y. So y, which equals GE, equals 15 over cos 52, and that equals 24.364 centimeters. And now that we have both side lengths BG and GE, we can work in triangle BGE to find angle GEB. So given as we have the opposite and adjacent sides, we can use the tangent function. So tan theta equals 7.64 divided by 24.364. And so theta, which is also angle GEB, equals the inverse tangent function of 7.64 over 24.364, giving us 17 degrees to the nearest degree. In question 20, we are asked to show that f is less than -4. So the first thing I'm going to do is label the diagram using the information provided in the question. So given as point D divides the line segment AB in the ratio 1:3, I'm going to label AD as 1, and DB is 3, and the y coordinate of A is 8, and the x coordinates of B is 16. The next step is to determine the equation of line AB, and in order to do that, we need a gradient of line AB. So the gradient of line AB equals the change in y, which is 0 minus 8, over the change in x, which is 16 minus 0, and that equals -1/2. So the equation of line AB is y equals -1/2 x plus 8. We now need to evaluate the coordinates of D in order to determine the equation of line L. And using the similar triangles on the screen, we can determine the x coordinates of D. Therefore, 16 minus x all over x equals 3 divided by 1. So 16 minus x equals 3x. And if you add x to both sides, that gives you 4x equals 16. So the x coordinates of D is 4. Now that we have this value of x, we can substitute it into the equation of line AB to determine the y coordinates of point D. So y equals -1/2 times 4 plus 8, and that equals 6. So point D has coordinates 4, 6. And given as D also lies on L, we can substitute its coordinates into equation line L. So for equation line L, y equals √3 times x plus c. So 6 equals √3 times 4 plus c. Therefore, c equals 6 minus 4 √3. So the equation of line L is y equals √3x plus 6 minus 4 √3. And finally, seeing as L passes through the point -2f, we can substitute these coordinates into the equation of L to determine the value of f. So f equals √3 times 2 plus 6 minus 4 √3. So f equals 6 minus 6 √3, giving us -4.39. Therefore, f is less than -4. In question 21, we are told to solve 3x minus 1 multiplied by 5x plus 2 is less than 0. The first thing we need to do is set this equal to 0. So 3x minus 1 multiplied by 5x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals 1/3 and x equals -2/5. So when I draw this on my graph, I have something that looks like this. And given as it's already less than 0, I'm looking at the region below the x-axis, which is this region here. So the final answer is -2/5 is less than x, which is less than 1/3. In question 22, the equation of a circle A is x squared plus y squared equals 25. Circle A is translated by the vector 0, -2 to give circle B. Sketch the circle B, show the coordinates of the center of circle B, and the points where circle B meets the y-axis. So circle A has center 0, 0, and radius 5, so it will look something like this, and it meets the y and the x-axis at these points. So we have 0, 5, 5, 0, -5, 0, and 0, -5. Circle A is translated by the vector 0, -2, which means it's translated 2 units down in the vertical direction. So if it's translated 2 units down, that means that this circle will move down in this direction. So circle B will look something like this. And so if we're moving 2 units down, 5 minus 2 gives us 3. So it cuts the y-axis at the point 0, 3, and minus 5 minus 2 is minus 7. So this point would be minus 7. And I'm going to label this as B. And that right there is your final answer. In the final question for today's video, we are given a quadrilateral ABCD. Find the size of angle ABC, give your answer correct to the nearest degree. So the first thing I'm going to do is label ABC, which is this angle, and I'm going to draw a straight line from D to B, which looks something like this. So I'm going to label this angle as X and this angle as Y. So angle ABC equals angle X plus Y. So for this question, we're going to need a cosine rule. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. And if I draw a triangle DBC, I have something that looks like this. So dB squared equals 9 squared minus 2 times 9 times 12 multiplied by cos 60, and so dB will simply equal the square root of all of that, and that equals 3 root 13. And now that we have the value of dB, we can obtain the value of y using the sine rule. So 3 root 13 over sine 60 equals 9 over sine y. Therefore, by cross multiplying, we have 3 root 13 times sine y, and that equals 9 sine 60. So sine y equals 9 sine 60 all over 3 root 13. So y equals sine inverse of 9 sine 60 all over 3 root 13. And to obtain the value of angle x, we need to look at triangle DAB, which looks something like this. So using our sine rule, we have sine x over 6, and that equals sine 125 over 3 root 13. Therefore, sine x equals 6 sine 125 all over 3 root 13. Therefore, x equals sine inverse of 6 sine 125 all over 3 root 13. Therefore, angle ABC equals sine inverse of 9 sine 60 over 3 root 13 plus sine inverse of 6 sine 125 over 3 root 13, which equals 73.127. So the final answer is 73 degrees to the nearest degree. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope this walkthrough has helped build your confidence in tackling advanced questions and exam style problems. I'll be uploading paper 3, so stay tuned. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, as it really helps support the channel and lets me know you're enjoying the content. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to S.E.T For You, as I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. Also, let me know in the comments if you have any specific topics or questions you'd like me to cover in future videos. And until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and I'll see you all in the next video.